Shotaro Chetsumi was a 16-year-old teenager living in the Kitaku district of Japan. He was the youngest of four children, growing up in an environment filled with love and warmth. Unlike many of his peers who struggled through the tumultuous teenage years, Shotaro was an exception. Outgoing and deeply attached to his family, his charming demeanor made him the apple of their eyes. A diligent student with a wide circle of friends, he was a model pupil, admired not only by his peers but also by his teachers. On the evening of October 4th, 2010, Shotaro and his family gathered as usual in the living room. They shared dinner, watched their favorite TV show, and chatted about the day's events. After the show ended, Shotaro mentioned he was stepping out briefly. His birthday was just around the corner, and a girl, referred to as A, had asked to meet him. Trusting him and knowing the meeting spot was close by, his parents allowed him to go, but they insisted he return soon. At approximately 10:50 p.m., Shotaro met A near a vending machine close to their home. They chatted casually. "What did you do yesterday? Went to karaoke with a friend? Your birthday's coming up. What do you want as a gift?" But suddenly, A felt the unsettling sensation of someone's eyes fixed on her. Looking around, she noticed a man standing across the street staring intently at them. It was late at night, and the eerie situation sent a chill down her spine. "Shotaro, that guy's acting weird, don't you think?" she said nervously. Before he could respond, the man abruptly began walking toward them. Sensing danger, Shotaro instinctively stepped in front of A to shield her. The man pulled out a knife, and with a sharp cry of, "Run!" Shotaro lunged at him, trying to fend him off. The attacker struck, driving the blade into Shotaro's neck and stabbing him several more times. Terrified and desperate, A fled to find help, informing some friends about the attack before returning to the scene. At first glance, the area appeared quiet, but as she strained her ears, she caught the faint sound of a groan. Following the sound, she discovered Shotaro lying on the road nearby, bleeding profusely. Her friends, who had rushed to her aid, immediately called the police and an ambulance. Tragically, despite the paramedics' best efforts, Shotaro succumbed to massive blood loss on the way to the hospital. His parents, already worried about his prolonged absence, were informed of the horrifying incident. They rushed to the hospital, only to be met with the devastating news of their son's death. Shotaro's father still recalls the moment he held his son's cold hand, hoping his warmth might somehow bring him back to life. The father simply could not let go of his son's hand. It is almost impossible to imagine the unbearable pain of a family that lost their beloved youngest son in a single night. The police launched an investigation immediately. At first, it seemed that the case would be solved quickly. They had a key witness, A, the girl who had seen the attacker. Although she had never encountered the man before, she managed to remember his appearance in detail. Based on her description, a composite sketch was created. A man approximately 160 to 170 centimeters tall, slightly overweight, with thick eyebrows, narrow and sharp eyes, and wavy hair. Soon, about 100 meters from the crime scene, a knife was discovered in a ditch, believed to be the weapon used in the attack. However, despite meticulous forensic examination, the weapon bore no fingerprints or traces pointing to the perpetrator. The only substantial piece of evidence was DNA found on Shotaro's shirt, belonging to an unidentified third party. Unfortunately, this DNA did not match any records in the criminal database. Moreover, there were no surveillance cameras in the area. Despite having a composite sketch and DNA evidence, the police were unable to trace the perpetrator. Desperate and unwilling to stand idly by, Shotaro's family took matters into their own hands. They began posting on the internet and on blogs that Shotaro loved visiting, pleading for help and asking for any information. But the response was both unexpected and deeply painful. The posts quickly filled with cruel and insulting comments. As it turned out, when journalists covered the case, they used photos of Shotaro where his hair was brightly dyed. People rushed to judge him solely based on his appearance, writing things like, "He's obviously just a delinquent, probably one thug killing another," and even, "well, one less lowlife." These heartless remarks shattered the grieving family, compounding their anguish. In reality, Shotaro only dyed his hair during summer vacations, not to stand out, but as a simple form of self-expression. He was never involved with bad company and had no reputation as a troublemaker. However, the rumors surrounding him grew so out of control that the school principal felt compelled to make a public statement defending his name. Shotaro was an exemplary student who never caused problems, either at school or at home. The principal's public statement emphasized this, praising Shotaro's character and actions. Yet the stereotypes clung stubbornly to his image, and no critical leads in the case emerged. Despite this, Shotaro's family and friends refused to give up. They printed and distributed flyers, independently gathered any information they could, and even announced a reward for valuable tips. But all their efforts remained in vain. Years passed. The pain of loss never truly subsided, but as days turned into months, and months into years, the family carried on. 11 years after Shotaro's murder, in 2021, an unexpected lead came to light. Someone reported that a man named Kenta had been boasting about killing someone, and the details he shared bore an eerie resemblance to Shotaro's case. Grasping at even the faintest hope, the police reopened the investigation. Kenta, 28 years old, appeared to lead an ordinary life, working for a company. However, further digging revealed that shortly after the murder, he had left the country. He had lived in China for some time and later traveled to Germany, ostensibly to attend a soccer match. This itinerant lifestyle seemed deliberately designed to keep him off the police's radar. The investigation still required concrete proof. Police compared the DNA found on Shotaro's shirt to Kenta's DNA, and the results were a 100% match. It was him. After 11 long years, the true murderer had been identified. On August 4, 2021, Kenta was officially arrested and charged with Shotaro's murder. It seemed as though the family's decade-long torment had finally come to an end. However, an unpleasant detail soon emerged. At the time of the crime, Kenta had been a minor, only 17 years old. This meant he would be tried as a juvenile, subject to the legal protections and limitations that entailed. His identity was shielded by law, and no personal details about him were disclosed. Despite this, Shotaro's father admitted he had braced himself for such a possibility. He had suspected that the person who killed his son might have been a teenager. The family focused on coming to terms with at least the fact that the perpetrator had been apprehended. But one question still loomed, unanswered. Why? Why had he killed Shotaro? It was the one truth they desperately yearned to uncover. So what was Kenta's motive? This question was particularly painful because the reason turned out to be outrageously trivial. Kenta killed Shotaro simply because he looked too happy with his girlfriend. That was it. It was revealed that during high school, Kenta had experienced a breakup with a girl who fell in love with a delinquent. Afterward, he became the target of bullying by school gangs and eventually dropped out. He blamed these delinquents for all his misfortunes. At the time of the murder, he was battling depression, and upon seeing Shotaro and his girlfriend radiating happiness, he suddenly snapped and committed the killing in a fit of rage. Later, he claimed to have felt immense guilt, attempting to garner sympathy. However, looking at Kenta's behavior after the murder, it becomes clear that his words were nothing but lies. In 2017, he authored a novel and published it online. The plot bore an unsettling resemblance to Shotaro's murder. The protagonist, a high school dropout, encounters a group of cheerful, delinquent teenagers near his home and, in a rage, kills them. In the story, only one girl survives. The details, including the bullying and school troubles, were too similar to reality, strongly suggesting that Kenta had drawn inspiration from his own cruel history. Moreover, Kenta led an active life on social media, held a stable job, and presented himself as a seemingly well-adjusted person. This completely contradicted his claims of feeling guilt. Shotaro's family had believed the murderer lived in constant fear of being caught, but they learned that Kenta felt no remorse whatsoever. This realization caused them unbearable pain and anger. On June 7, 2024, the trial began. All members of Shotaro's family were present in the courtroom. When the prosecutor asked Kenta if he admitted to stabbing his victim multiple times, he replied, "Yes, I stabbed him, but I didn't intend to kill him. I didn't even think he could feel pain or get hurt." This justification sounded absurd. At the time of the murder, Kenta was 17 years old. Yes, it was still his teenage years, but to claim at that age not to know that stabbing someone could lead to death is utterly ridiculous. The court, unsurprisingly, did not take Kenta's excuses seriously. A psychiatrist who examined him testified that Kenta was likely faking symptoms of schizophrenia in an attempt to evade punishment. Ultimately, Kenta was sentenced to 18 years in prison. This sentence was considered an unusually severe application of the juvenile law. According to the legislation in effect at the time of the crime, the maximum sentence expected for a minor was no more than 15 years. Shotaro's family, while not considering the sentence entirely fair for such a grave crime, expressed some satisfaction that this case set a precedent in how juvenile offenders could be treated in court. However, Kenta immediately filed an appeal after the sentencing, and the appellate process is still ongoing. To this day, there has been no sign of remorse or acknowledgement of guilt on his part. Shotaro's family understands that they will never return to the life they once had, the one where their beloved youngest son was with them. For the victims of crimes and their loved ones, there is no true closure. Despite their profound grief, the family dedicates themselves to helping other families affected by similar tragedies. They actively promote initiatives and support networks for victims, tirelessly working to transform their pain into a force for good. We mourn the tragic loss of Shotaro and express our hope that his family may one day find peace, despite the immeasurable void left by his absence.